What's ahead for new development in the Valley, or development in the Valley? The 2010 Better Development Symposium was held today by the Valley Conservation Council. The title was Planning Ahead for the Next Development Cycle. The Conservation Council says the economic downturn, significant regulatory changes, and shifts in market trends all signal changes for development in the future. The Council asks, what are the changes, and how will they affect development and localities? And joining us now to discuss future growth in the Valley is John Eckman, Executive Director of the Valley Conservation Council. John, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here, Bob.
The title for today's symposium was Planning Ahead for the Next Development Cycle. Did anyone have a good feel for when the next development cycle will happen?
Well, you know, we had one developer who spoke today, Jim Vickers from Oak Crest Homes up in Winchester. And Jim has been in this business quite a while, and he mentioned that, you know, he had seen these downturns before in the 70s and the 90s, and he knew that we were going to come back out of this one. You know, it's a cyclical thing. We can expect to. If I knew when it was going to happen, I'd probably be making a lot more money than I do right now.
Okay, but he does expect it to happen at some point.
We certainly do. We know the Valley is an attractive place for people to move to.
Okay. Now, you say the economic downturn, significant regulatory changes, and shifts in market trends all signal changes for development in the future. Mm-hmm. We know what about the economic downturn that we're in. What about the significant regulatory changes? What are those?
Well, two speakers we had today were from VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation, and the Department of Conservation and Recreation. And the VDOT fellow was speaking about changes in the law that occurred a few years ago that helped land use planning and transportation planning mesh better for communities. So you'll see more developments in the future where connections between those developments occur in the road structure so that walking and driving distances will be shortened. On the water quality side, the Department of Conservation and Recreation is, of course, tasked with stormwater regulation in the Commonwealth, and the Chesapeake Bay regulations are coming down the pike, and we're going to see significant changes down the road.
And how will Valley residents see that? Existing homes and maybe not so much, but new homes?
Certainly in new development, and how this will play out still is going to take many months, if not years, before they take effect. But what we're going to see is the amount of impervious surface of roof structures, roads, sidewalks on any particular site are going to be, there'll be incentives to encourage a reduction in those over what we've traditionally seen. This helps mimic the natural hydrology of the site so that you're actually seeing less of that stormwater run off into the creeks and more of it getting soaked into the ground.
All right. You also talk about shifts in market trends. What are the shifts in market trends?
Well, nationally, we've seen some trends. Several studies recently have shown that about half of the buildings and homes and offices that we're going to need, even factories, by 2030 haven't been built yet. So there's this big opportunity for us to make changes. And more than 90% of people polled by the National Association of Realtors and the Smart Growth Network a few years ago said they wanted more walkable, bikeable communities. They didn't want to be driving as much. People are tired of spending so much time in their cars. Now, this is a national trend. We're seeing a tremendous interest in smaller homes. 75% of homeowners now do not have school-age children. So we're going to see more and more demand for houses that aren't the large sort of mega homes or McMansions that we've seen over the last several years. And that's going to, you know, I think as the population ages, you're also going to see interest in being closer to services.
And that tending to be true, you would think, here in the Valley, too.
We're already seeing interest in that. Now, this doesn't mean that those other types of development aren't still going to happen, but a larger percentage of development over time is probably going to be for this closer, denser, more walkable, friendly type of development.
And what does the Valley Conservation Council advocate for?
Well, we are a land trust. We are interested in preserving the farms and forests and open spaces of the Valley. And the way we see development tying into that is the more we can make our communities attractive places where people are comfortable living in more dense areas, the less pressure we're going to have on these rural areas, and the more we're going to see farmland saved and pressure taken off of farmers to develop their land.
All right. John Eckman, Executive Director of the Valley Conservation Council, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And now let's send it to Mel in Stanton.